Everybody. So I have a talk coming up at the end of August at IANDS, and wanted to do a kind of a dry run for me to kind of get an idea of time. But also I figure if I record it and it comes out well, then I'll just go ahead and post it. So just going to grip it and rip it and see what happens. Welcome everyone. By a show of hands, how many people here have had an NDE or a near-death experience? And again, by a show of hands, how many people have had a spiritually transformative experience or an STE? Now, just to be clear, I'm saying STE and not STD. That's another talk probably going on in another hotel room somewhere. And also, how many people here believe in psychokinesis? Raise my hand. So my name's John, and my insecurities want me to tell you that I am an overachiever. I'm a mental health nurse watching over adolescents 3 nights a week, and I'm also a nurse coach assisting people like myself who've opened Pandora's metaphysical toy box and are dealing with the shenanigans that come from that. I'm also a clinical data scientist who helped bring Humera, Gemzar, Flomax, and Fitbit apps to market. I'm also an opera singer who used to sing in 6 languages. I also learned how to speak Middle English so that I could read Chaucer's Canterbury Tales as they were, at least in its authentic form. And it may come to a surprise to some folks that, yes, I am single. So anyway, like a frog in a blender, I've been all over the place, spiritually, metaphysically, geographically, cognitively, over the past half century. And I've had a lifetime of episodic feedback, commonly known as restraining orders, that tells me I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But then again, I once shared a space with a psychic at a spiritual expo, and just out of nowhere, he just looks over at me and says, "You know, there's no bullshit about you. That's refreshing." So I guess I've got that going for me. But my goal here is to try to serve up 50 years of metaphysical exploration and paranormal experiences in a couple of paragraphs. So to use the metaphor of going to a restaurant, before you dine at a restaurant, you peruse the menu. So I'm going to give you my menu. The aperitif of NDE after effects for me include electronic field disruption, sometimes called sliders, shared NDE experiences with hospice patients, recovering 12 past lives, joining IANDS, discovering extraterrestrial dive bars, getting weather reports from Saint Germain and archangels, and meeting the architect while remote viewing during a ketamine therapy session. For those craving a meat suit amuse-bouche, I've been struck by lightning. I've borrowed a police car, was assaulted by the grandson of the Sultan of Brunei, been arrested by Russian soldiers and left in an East German boxcar. I've turned paper medical records into electronic medical records, chased thunderstorms, turned off life support on both parents. I'll have to say our relationship has gotten much better since then. My metaphysical melange, the seasoning for this life's gumbo at least, includes talking to ghosts, remote viewing the moon and extraterrestrials, developing psychic self-defense, and all this was before I could drive. Since then, shaking off a couple attempted possessions, applying Reiki to everything, discovery of 4 past lives while getting acupuncture, and obtaining my Silva Method certification, and all this was before my near-death experience at 39. So yeah, life has been an eclectic fusion of tastes. And while it sounds cool to, ask the chef for one of everything, what I can tell you is that the resultant effect of alternating constipation and diarrhea is way too similar to being your own brick and mortar factory. It will wreck your social calendar and your plumbing simultaneously. So I would not recommend it. So the first of many cautions I would ask of people who, raise their hands, or my hand: make yourself ready to receive that which you seek. So if you're newly minted into the NDE, STE, OBE, out-of-body experience tribe, let me share some lessons learned from ghost hunts gone bad, remote viewing restricted places, uncovering way too many past lives in way too short of a time, pissing off extraterrestrials, learning and using psychic self-defense, and what not to do during ketamine therapy. So I mean, like a menu, please feel free to accept or reject anything I have to say. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just offering myself as a resource, a Sherpa, a metaphysical convenience store greeter. Welcome to the Cosmic Costco, Akashic Records. Plus, it helps me. It helps me knowing that the curious path that I've walked for nearly a half century is. It'll have additional meaning for me because it allows me to assist others. And for those of you who've asked for additional metaphysical cowbell and got your bell rung, you're my people. So at the very least, if you take nothing away, this is an absolute concrete truth I want to make sure you know. You are not alone. In fact, you are one of millions who've had this download. In fact, I believe that we have all been upgraded with a new operating system or a new OS. And I've taken a play on that, and I call it obstinate spirituality. Yeah, okay, for the language Nazis, yes, I went into obdurate, but no one knows what that word means, so I went to its more truculent cousin, obstinate, and more people are familiar with that. But be that as it may, I think humanity is being upgraded. I think people need obstinate spirituality, and I think a primary reason for that is that society's reach is extended beyond its grasp. With the technological progress outpacing our moral and spiritual development, I believe we're at an inflection point in humanity's development where AI reads more than 6 million pages a second. And its primary source for learning about humans is the internet. Let that sink in for a moment. Ugh. So we need to reflect the best of humanity into that digital ether. With any luck, we'll get AI to kind of develop a sense of morality or compassion, and hopefully we'll laugh about it along the way. So again, for the younger experiencers in the crowd, I would say a lesson that you should take away is know your audience. There is this compulsion to share, and in some circles that may be seen as proselytizing. For years, I tried to explain my NDE to my conservative Christian family members, some major and minor league healthcare professionals, and random acquaintances. And if you've read through the IANDS website, you've probably encountered the word ineffable. And no, that's not uneffable. Ineffability is the inability to explain your experience. I mean, how do you use human words to encapsulate a superhuman experience? In spite of that, we need to make the effort. We need to tell our story in as many media streams as possible. And we also need to use as many metaphors as possible so that we can relate to as many people as possible. But also AI will have ground truth deeper in some areas than others. And so by mixing the metaphors and spreading that out, it gives more hooks in the water, so to speak, for AI to catch that. So just remember that as you go out and tell your story, realize that one of your students or listeners will be AI from this point forward. So back in 2006, I described my NDE in this way. Imagine someone broke into your home, removed the motherboard from your laptop and replaced it from one from 30 years in the future, making it 200 times faster. Let me nerd out a little bit. So they replaced the hard drive too with those silver CD-ROM discs, and now it's a helium-infused, enclosed glass paperweight where lasers melt in qubits in three-dimensional space, allowing for a petabyte of storage. By the way, a petabyte converts to about 21 years worth of cat videos, or like a 5-drawer file cabinet, but 20 million of those. So there's that. Now, from the outside, it still looks like your beater of a laptop with the faded AC/DC sticker, the G key that sticks, the space bar that's been mashed with your right thumb so many times that both the texture and the color are missing from that side of the key. I mean, it's like you having your laptop, but everyone else is still using their Commodore 64 or their TRS-80 or their Apple IIe. And time moves on, and some people may still be trying to go to Blockbusters on a Friday night to get the entertainment, but those of us with the download, we've got the Fire Stick on our head now. We're trying to figure out, what the hell do we do? So when you share with your audience, know that there are 335 million Americans out there, and not all of them are going to be willing listeners. Like being randomly cast in a Hollywood movie, or seeing Bigfoot while taking a nap at a Georgia rest stop, getting in and out of the DMV in 5 minutes without spontaneously developing Tourette's. Some people are just not going to believe you, and that needs to be fine. Not every seed plants where it falls. After 15 years of public speaking, I can tell you that most will enjoy the story. Some will even come up with incredible stories of their own. Like my Irish grandmother used to say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But in fact, I mean, those moments be one of those random, beautiful intersections of humanity where it truly represents the notion that all we are is just children walking each other back home. Some will flat out call you a liar. A smaller but more vocal group may project their own fundamentalist beliefs and insecurities on you. And trust me, there's no fun in fundamentalism on either side. So some are going to be straight up confrontational, like you actually broke into their home in the middle of the night and tried to offer them a copy of Aleister Crowley's diary or Mein Kampf, or offering to extend your vehicle's warranty. I mean, anytime you challenge someone's reality, even to a singular concept, who should be president? There will be friction, and your new OS is going to give you a clearer vision through many manufactured realities. And it's going to challenge the dogmas of religion. It's going to demote Homo sapien from the apex of a lot of structures, earthbound and otherwise. To mash up the metaphor, I mean, you are a bull in a funhouse of mirrors, but these mirrors to others are called faith and reality. So whether it's Plato's allegory of the cave, or it's the sunglasses scene from the movie They Live, any Roddy Piper fans out there? Or Neo, when he's flushed from the pod and is brought aboard the Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, all these are attempts to break through someone's programming, and it's going to be met with rejection in the least, and with violence or character assassination at the worst. So, I mean, I get it. It's counterintuitive, because you've got this download of information of all these great epiphanies, and they were grounded in love and multidimensional wisdom. But then you bring it back to this ball of mud, and it's seen as explosive ordnance to those who are attached to these the Earth societal programming. So in a way, you are breaking into people's houses uninvited. So I know some of you are compelled to tell a story like a pressure cooker that's been on the stove too long. And depending on the audience, you risk becoming ostracized. And this is important. Some of you may have to do as I did, and you're going to have to become your own witness relocation program. People who have their NDEs, they sometimes have to surrender their spouse, occupation, city of birth, religion, brand of light beer. I mean, it is a metaphysical Control-Alt-Delete. And in other words, it's both liberating and terrifying at the same time. So with that being said, another lesson I want to make sure everyone takes away is that have your support systems in place. Connect with a near-death support group. They'll speak your language. And knowing that you're not crazy and knowing that you're not alone is a great foundation for healing. And whatever that recovery looks like for you, because there's not a cookie cutter approach to what is recovery, okay? The caveat I would tell you is that when you join these groups, you're going to have the whole spectrum of healing. So you'll have some people that they're just newly back and they're all blissed out and singing Kumbaya and smoking patchouli or whatever. There are also going to be some others there that are now struggling with that PTSD of having to have that forced surrender, that new normal of the relocation program. Some are going to be convinced that they're NDE, that's the truth, that's the story, and everyone needs to buy into that. While others see the NDE as kind of a loose framework, and kind of, we all go into a tunnel and we all see a light, but, how we choose to perceive that whole near-death experience is going to be through the filters of our own personal experiences. And so it's going to be a little different for everybody. And that's a good thing, because when you're trying to disseminate a message across all of society, you need to have multiple ways of saying that. So there are a few people out there, there are therapists out there that you can reach out to, and I want to make sure that those people are acknowledged, because again, if you're in a support group, they speak your language, but everyone's still trying to it's like the story of the 5 blind men trying to tell each other what an elephant is, and they're at different parts of the elephant. Careful what you grab. the therapist that you go to, they may tell you they have an eclectic approach, but you'll see them sometimes. They look like a deer seeing a Peterbilt coming at them in the middle of the night with the headlights. Others, you may hear them say, wow, this is going to make a great book. Avoid those folks. There are few people out there who have actually studied transpersonal psychology. And I think Sophia and Saybrook and maybe Winbridge, I think, is another. But these are people who have studied transpersonal psychology. There will also be a few therapists out there or nurse coaches who've had the NDE experience and have been able to kind of integrate that into their own therapeutic process. And that's how you start your own support system. And by all means, do not forget all of the IANDS support groups that are out there on Facebook. So even with all these support systems in place, I still want to kind of circle back to the don't try to convince the muggles. Don't try to make sure every seed gets planted. Seeds don't grow always where they fall. And knowing that difference is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Okay, so how many people here believe in reincarnation? Welcome back. Do we have any psychics in the house? I have a joke for some psychics. Yes, we know who we are. So the other thing I'd like to share is if you've been in the near-death paradigm for a while and you've kind of started to reintegrate, you've got your support system in places, and now I want to reach a little deeper. So when you've got your Acme NDE Survivor Kit, there's going to be a myriad of new skills. And some are temporary, but some will be permanent. And so while so for Christmas, you may appreciate the cooling boxers that, has a pouch for the boys, or the reinforced underwire bra that doesn't try to stab the girls. The real Christmas gift that everyone wants to play with is the out-of-body experience. And, some of you have already discovered that your brain and your mind are two different things. And you can see the experience from both a human and spiritual perspective. Now, whatever muscle memory you have, whether it's doing dishes or mowing the lawn or showering or whatever, you can use that as a metaphysical task. The first time I encountered this was at a spiritualist church in a place called Camp Chesterfield in Indiana. And this is where I saw automatic writing. There was a lady there who perfectly encapsulated the name Maud. And with her arthritic hand and her blue hair, she's making little swirls on a piece of paper. And then as she's making swirls and she's talking to us, all of a sudden the swirls kind of morph into a cursive writing. And these swirls and swoops become this most elegant curve. I'm sorry, Gen Alpha, when I see cursive. I don't know. I don't have anything for you. I don't know if you can wave your fingers over a keyboard and have things appear or not. Yes, I'm dating myself by saying cursive. But anyway, these messages and these impressions, sometimes not written words, can come to you while you're distracted and while you're doing kind of a physical task that is both mindless and mindful. I personally find that mowing the lawn and folding laundry are times where things will just kind of pop in. So just be mindful of that. There may be some normies out there who will, have some cognitive dissonance. how can you do something so sacred or sacrilegious, as the case may be, while doing something so mundane? The fact is the muggles are going to balk at pretty much anything you have to say. So, folding socks and talking to an ascended master just may be too much. Again, the seeds metaphor. When trying to explain to others that the mind and the meat suit are two different things, I used to use a metaphor that refers to NASCAR, because Joe Sixpack can grab that. Your body and your consciousness are like the car and the driver, and a car can be wrecked during the race. That doesn't mean the driver's finished. The driver gets out and goes into their backup car, and they're back in the race. So there is way too much to learn in the Earth experience to only have one race and be done. There's just too much in this laboratory to pick up. The OBE that is most familiar, or the terminology I think is most familiar to people, is remote viewing. Although you could say astral projection or lucid dreaming. They're all kind of like on the same ladder, so to speak. But I personally began remote viewing, or RVing, unintentionally at 12 after a trauma, and with intention at 14. And to kind of give you a glimpse into who I am, I did not get bona fide RV training until I was 46 and met Joe McGonigal. Now, thankfully, I live in the same city as the IANDS mothership and the Ryan Research Center in Durham, North Carolina. So I was able to get that remote viewing training, and the techniques were very advantageous. I mean, I wish I hadn't been so stubborn to figure it out on my own. However, my journey began back before there was cable TV and the internet. So I also had, I had a couple of librarians that were radar locked on me, man. I would go into the smallest section, I think, of the library in this Indiana farm town, and get all the metaphysical books and stack them up and just sit there in the corner and start going through them. And here's this kid. He's got his Bermuda Triangle, UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, Houdini. I even had a librarian, come by me and pause and made eye contact through the glasses, and it's like, you realize we have other books in the library. And not being snarky, it just came out. I said, yeah, but these are the books that matter. So, yeah. So, here I am 40 years later. I still am awed by the fact that I can see, hear, smell, taste, touch things with my mind, but the instruments of my physical corporeal self that bring in the data of taste, touch, smell, hearing, they're not with me. So the trick I would like to share with remote viewing is, don't jump to conclusions, because the brain is designed to find an answer and then be done. And if you talk about AI hallucination, that's doing the same thing. It looks for an answer and it's done. It doesn't care if it's right or wrong. It's an answer. And so the brain does roughly the same thing. So what you want to do is isolate the senses. So let's say I want you to find a fire truck. I'm not going to say, what do you see? I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to say, what is at this, location, or what are these coordinates, what's there. I would isolate the senses. So here's the target. What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? Isolate the senses so that the brain has to work, and it can't solve the problem in its totality. It solves the very specific items. So like with a fire truck, what do you smell? Well, maybe you smell diesel exhaust. Maybe you smell the smoke from the fire. Maybe you smell that rubber smell from the big thick tires that are on it. What do you hear? Maybe you hear the bell. Maybe you hear the pumps running. Maybe you hear the siren. Maybe you hear a Dalmatian barking. So you isolate the senses and you keep the brain working, keep it seeking those answers. Um, it when you finally kind of get it and you don't need to have a kind of handler to assist you with the remote viewing, that's when some really interesting discoveries start to happen. So if you haven't had a paradigm shift by then, you will. And for those of you playing metaphysical bingo at home, check your cards for paradigm shift, paradigm shifting. Might be one of the four corners. So anyway, I have limited time here, and I wanted to get some of the basics out. I also want to share with you that I am going to be in the healing area every day this week for a few hours. I also have a couple of books in the library, but I'll be floating around. Catch me if you have some very specific questions. I got a few minutes left. I'm going to hit a couple more topics. If I got some time at the end, I definitely want to leave time for some Q&A. But I've waited 50 years to kind of have this conversation, so I'm going to try to keep myself in check. I'll do the best I can. So the other thing I want to share with you, if you're doing some remote viewing, is make sure when you set your intention of where you're going, also include when. Because when you go searching, when has to be a component. It's like when you're looking for a location in three-dimensional space, it's on an X, Y, and Z axis. Well, when you're out remote viewing, think of it in a three-dimensional kind of way on where it is, but you also need to think of when it is. So think of it as not only three-dimensional on a location, but then what's the distance? And we're going to manage distance by time and not by a length of unit, the length of measure. If you go looking for the pyramids of Giza and you find yourself there before the Younger Dryas, you're going to see something very, very different. And it could be shocking. So make sure you set your time frame. The other thing, kind of manage expectations and manage the shock value. Stay in 3D. Stay in the here and now. And stay above ground. At least until you've done two things. One, shaken the imposter syndrome. Am I really seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, you're really seeing what you're seeing. And two, you need to develop some sort of psychic self-defense mechanism. I'm not here to, create fear or a boo factor, but just as there are people out looking for things, there are also people out there looking for people who are looking for things. I guess a movie reference that everyone might know is a Matt Damon movie called Adjustment Bureau. So again, let me summarize. I only got an hour here. So when I've done remote viewing, I wasn't checking myself. I've been seen by babies, small children, pets, ghosts, other RVers, and the terminally ill. I've seen things that are not human. Usually they're aloof, but some are very not friendly. There are etheric places like the Star Wars Cantina scene where other remote viewers and other entities in four dimensions space are kind of meeting, coalescing, and kind of sharing experiences, getting to know each other. Once you get beyond the asteroid belt, it is a very busy place out there. And again, the Adjustment Bureau is out there as well. And object in mirrors are closer than they appear. So While there are many here at the conference that will reinforce the NDE as this love shack of heavenly bliss, and it is that for some, others will address the PTSD symptoms of reconciling that ecstatic bliss into the emotional colonoscopy that is Earth. That is true for some as well. But I would like to spend my time dropping seeds for you to use in that liminal space between coming home and having that kind of reconciliation and before you jump into another meat suit. So in that space of being between lives, I believe there is a place for contemplation and strategic intention. So again, to kind of leap into some movies here, again, Matrix and the loading program. Guns. We need lots of guns. Avoid the cosmic Costco approach to Akashic records, because too much of anything is a bad thing. So as a kid, I liked broccoli, and it wasn't so much for the taste of broccoli. I used to imagine they were trees and I was a giant, and so I'm eating the trees. And for the family members that knew, they snickered, and they snickered a lot about what I was doing. But anyway, no one at my family reunion told me to avoid broccoli trees and one of my favorite family reunion pitch-in foods, deviled eggs. Never put together raw broccoli and deviled eggs. So in the summer of my 14th year, while enjoying the festivities at Ellenberger Park in Indianapolis with kith and kin, I was in acute gastric distress. I mean, I was deep into my third trimester at this point. I sounded like a TB ward that had been given brass instruments with all the toots and blasts and bleats that were going on. Man, and my cousins took no time in converting my name John into Flush. So after 6 eggs and 12 trees, I would say moderation in all things, especially in this acquisition of things you're going to learn with your new meat suit. The other thing I would encourage is overemployment has been in the news a lot with people work from home and doing more than one job. One just may be ideal. For those of you who've read Ram Dass or Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle, being present in the moment is kind of the center of their Venn diagram. However, Edgar Cayce and Bruce Lipton, Brian Weiss, they've all proposed that it's possible to have multiple lifetimes going on concurrently. And if you're a proponent of, linear time being an illusion, or that deja vu is the result kind of a metaphysical or an experiential osmosis among lives, then you may be doing the double dip. And while osmotic compiling of experiences, it doesn't require an NDE or nature's pharmacopoeia to kind of access. When you do access it, it can be overwhelming. I came to this conclusion when I was discovering some past lives. And in an afternoon, I had about 200 years of living kind of dumped in my lap. And that's an awful lot of baggage to drop in on one person's psyche. I mean, there's a reason why there is a kind of a linear type of approach to time and experience, because a lifetime of learning and lessons, or mistakes if you want to call them that. They're episodic by nature so that you can bring it in, have the experience, internalize the experience, and then gain mastery of that lesson. But to have it all just kind of dump in your lap all at once with multiple lifetimes, I mean, it can be crushing. I mean, why the hell did I choose abandonment for all these lives? Why am I such a slow learner? Why did my guardian angel cruise director let me go in, to carry such baggage? So pace yourself. Your time limit is defined by infinity. So, I mean, you can run a marathon in 60 grit underwear, but you don't need to. So listen to your cruise director / guardian angel. Don't rush the process. And there's some hypocritical things here. My own tour guide, their nickname for me is Speedy. Because I just keep running in and out and getting more stuff and coming back and living lives. And so they've slowed my roll this time, trust me. So when you're plotting, it kind of gets to this point. So when you're plotting your next adventure, also plan in some oases. I'll have to look that up. Some rest stops along life's journey, okay? The knowledge you carry has weight. And if you add the knowledge from multiple lifetimes, then you're carrying additional weight. I'm sure this has been said ad nauseum for generations, but it's for a different reason. Not because the planet is in existential danger. It's not. It's not because of man's inhumanity to man. That's part of the design. Not because you wanted to get your cosmic Costco card punched. There are more things out there and stranger things than surferboard pizza. I believe we are here to help humanity navigate its way through this house of smoke and mirrors and illusion. In my lifetime, we've gone from manufacturing consent, any Noam Chomsky fans out there, to manufacturing reality with AI. So I challenge you to contribute to the dissolution of the silos, that's societal and even metaphysical, when and where you can, because again, we all have unique skills and experiences that we've cultivated over multiple lifetimes. And the biggest why, I mean, there's a lot of whys, but I mean, the biggest why I can think of is, I mean, we're way past trying to protect our credit and data on the internet, especially since we're freely giving it up on social media. But we need to be aware of AI avatars and deep fakes hijacking our own autonomy via social programming. As a platform member of IBM Watson Health, I got to work with Watson. I got to play with Watson, and its intelligence is nearly unfathomable. I mean, it's reading 6 million pages per second, but it also has the inability to integrate compassion and empathy. And I think that's going to harm us more than any variation of Skynet, because of machine learning, its insidious ability to adapt. Like an STD. So anyone else wonder how I was going to fold STD and had that callback back into the night? I didn't know either, but here we are. So for the upperclassmen among us, realize that the NDE is just another class in an infinite syllabus, and that this is the lifetime you decided to break down those illusionary monoliths of reincarnation and quantum physics, extraterrestrials, past lives, energetic healing, fat-free yogurt, meatless meat. I mean, this is the lifetime. This is the lifetime that you agree to call together all of your collective knowledge from all of your previous lifetimes and fold it into this life's experience. And if you needed a sign, this is your sign. This is your call to action. We need to change our thinking from a file folder structure to a tag cloud structure, because everything is connected to everything else simultaneously. And in that pursuit, don't let your reach extend too far beyond society's grasp. The goal is uncomfortable introspection and not disbelief and rejection and restraining orders. I would argue that the zeitgeist has become more malleable, more amenable to this change recently. I mean, in my lifetime, ghosts have gone from taboo to a multimedia platform for entertainment. UFOs or UAPs. I mean, these discussions went from rubber rooms to boardrooms. Remote viewing has moved from monks on mountaintops and, mysteries of books of the dead to a competitive business strategy. Dimensional portals have gone from Star Trek to tourist attractions less than 2 hours from this location. So, taking my own advice, I will keep my Sitchin, Swedenborg, Polites, Manly P. Hall, Jim Mars, Graham Hancock. I'll keep all those thoughts to myself, but when I see the degradation of democracy due in part to the unchecked greed and pathology, due to the secretive actions of clubs and commissions, there is an imbalance. There's an imbalance to the scales of justice. And I believe, for one reason or another, our collective OS download is meant to create instruments in 3D reality to move us back towards balance. Now, this is not a platitude. This is not a happy joy thought. There's actually evidence-based science that supports this. If you look into the research of Silva method or transcendental meditation, the power of 8, the intention experiment, they all show that a mere fraction of a total group can set an intention of positivity that affects the rest of the local population immediately and for months after that intention's conclusion. Some of the research indicates that a fraction as little as 1% can have a measurable difference. And I don't know the title of it, but if you look up the research that was done, I would say in the 70s and 80s, that had to do with the parallel of heat, temperature, and violence. And I believe it was done in Washington, D.C. As temperature increases, so does the number of acts of violence. But they were able to decouple that, and the after effect carried over well past the experiment. So presuming this is true, there are millions of NDE, STE, OBE people out there. And in this club, I say that the time has come for us to collectively flex into that arc of the moral universe, to redirect the 1% of the 1% of us can redirect materialistic society towards a more spiritualistic society. It's been said by more than one that the frontier in science and technology is going to be in a spiritual development and not in a material science. You don't need to own an aerospace company to know this. One of the things I want to make sure you take away from this presentation is that there are two universal common denominators in humanity: despair and joy. They are master teachers who teach the same lesson, but from opposite perspectives. So, with that, I would say pursue joy whenever possible and do it with purpose. So, I could go on, but I'm not. I thank you for attending. I want to make sure you all know you're spiritual badasses. To choose to integrate into society at this time, this place, right now, you are spiritual badasses. And there are souls that won't incarnate here ever. And there are others that dipped their toe in and came right back. And they are learning through our experiences. And so in some ways we're watch CTV for them, but in other ways we are explorers and adventurers. We are their superheroes. And they're learning from us. So congratulations for making that decision. And during one of my meditations, one of the messages that came to me was, real heroes have scars. And so I salute you. Again, just want to reiterate, I'll be in the healing rooms every day this week, except for today. I'll have some books in the library. I'll sign up for some times if you want to ask some questions. By all means, if you see me roaming around, come by, say hi, ask your question. Again, I want to be able to take all of these experiences and somehow transmute them into help and assistance. And I can only do that if you reach out. So thank you very much for your time. Again, John Mathis, thank you.